Hey, what's going on, beautiful jellyfish? It's Tracy. Thanks so much for taking a little bit of time today to hang out with me. I really appreciate it. I do have the kittens in here with me. Leia's very happily in a bag. Oh, she just escaped from the bag. Never mind. She's no longer happy in the bag. But anyways, in this video, I'm doing a new series on my channel where I basically talk about 10 EDH staples. And I just want to be really clear that I focus on one specific color. And I just want to be really clear. I don't spend this video talking about every green staple. So I feel like I get some comments that are like very confused. Like, why didn't you mention this? It's like, I only talk about 10 cards because if I didn't, we'd be sitting here for an hour. I don't know anyone who wants to sit and listen to me talk for an hour. So yeah, we only talk about 10 cards, but I definitely want to do more parts of this. I figured I wanted to start with green because green to me is like my favorite EDH color. I do have plans. I've already planned out artifacts, and I think I planned out blue cards as well. I'm pretty sure. Where is it? Where did I put it? Oh, and I planned out white as well. I just need to plan out black. Oh goodness, yes, I got a little excited, and then I was like, all the ideas. So anyways, yeah, let's just hop into it and talk about EDH staples that are in the green color combination. Okay, the first card that I really want to talk about is Eternal Witness, aka Ewit. And I feel like Ewit's like one of those cards that I just, like every deck, you know, I mean, like, that's the point of this, is to talk about things that are staples that belong in a variety of decks, but there's really no scenario where I can see a deck that just doesn't run an Eternal Witness, you know, even in, like, my 5-color deck, there's a spot for Eternal Witness. Like, come on, she's just amazing. She is a 3-mana creature to get back anything. It's target card that's in your graveyard. It's not specifically a creature. It's not specifically an instant or sorcery. You can get back anything, which is so incredibly good. And on top of that, she's a 2/1. So one of my favorite things to do, because I run this card in I run this card in everything, but I run this card in Tasigur, and I will have my Eternal Witness and then, you know, get something back with her, Skull Clamp her, because she is a 2/1. So it's a very great synergy to do that with. And just overall, I mean, you're playing green. Why would you not want to run an Eternal Witness? Like, getting back your things just is so incredibly good. So love Eternal Witness. The next card that I want to talk about is one of my personal favorites. Like, I feel like when I think about like the holy trinity of like green creatures, it's like Eternal Witness, this card, and then another card that we'll talk about, but Courser of Kruphix. Like, I love Courser of Kruphix. I remember when this card like first got spoiled and I was like, yes, I love this card so much. So you play with the top card of your library reveals, and I feel like some people are like, oh, I like don't want to do that because I don't want to give people information. The upside that you get from this card is just is significantly better from that. Because you can do a little bit of filtering with this card, because you can play the top card of your, off of, why is this hard for me to explain? You can play the card that's on your library that you've revealed with Courser of Kruphix, there we go, to put it into play. So realistically, you get a little bit of filtering. I mean, it's just like a little bit. There's better things to do that for, but I think the fact that you can do a little bit with this card, I think makes it incredibly good. It's also a 2/4. She's got a big body, so her toughness makes her a little bit harder to kill, which I really like. And she's only 3 mana, which is just so incredibly good. And then whenever a land ETBs, you gain a life. Something that this card does not do is you cannot play additional lands. It's not something that this card does. That's not really the point of this card or why you run it. I like it for the little bit of life gain. I feel like one thing I try to do in my commander decks is I try to do kind of like a little bit of everything and be like a jack of all trades, like a little bit of life gain, a little bit of this kind of removal, a little bit of that kind of removal, small creatures, big creatures. Like, I think the best commander decks are decks that do that, and I think this is one of those cards that makes me feel very much like I am a jack of all trades, and I feel like I'm able to gain that little bit of life, which I don't tend to have that much life gain in my decks, and this card definitely does that. But again, I really love it for having, just seeing that card that's on top, and then if it's a land, just getting the chance to play that. If I don't have any lands in my hand, just absolutely love Courser of Kruphix. She's definitely one of my favorites. Okay. Now let's talk about 2 cards that are basically the same thing, so I'm talking about them, you know, together, and that is Kodama's Reach and Cultivate. As far as I'm aware, these actually read the same exact thing. And put one into the battlefield tapped, and the other into your hand, the battlefield tapped, and the 2 hand and shuffle your library. Yeah, these are the same exact cards. They do the same exact thing. They're 3 mana. This is just, when I think green EDH, like instant sorcery, this is one of the first cards that comes to my head. I like these cards a lot because they are basic, so that it's just something to note that you're not able to get out other things, and we'll talk about a little bit later in this video things that get non-basics. So this is basic, so it's just something to be aware of, but I like it because you get something to the battlefield tapped and then you get the other one into your hand. This is really great for multicolor decks, I would say in particular, because they are not specifically forest, so you can get any sort of basics that you need. So it's really great if you're running like, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors and you're able to do that. I mean, honestly, even these in a monocolor deck, it's just incredibly good. So absolutely, these cards are wonderful. They're also very inexpensive, which is also very, very great. And 3 mana, I think, is just at that really good mana cost where I think, you know, you can easily cast these cards, and I really like that. So love, love, love both of these cards. I mentioned earlier about the Holy Trinity, and to me, in the Holy Trinity of cards, we gotta go with, like, Reclamation Sage. This is one of those cards, to me, very similarly to how I feel about Courser of Kruphix, is just kind of, like, makes you feel a little bit like a jack of all trades, and Reclamation Sage definitely helps me feel that way because, again, there's not a single deck that I run that doesn't have Reclamation Sage in it that is green, because she does one thing, or I guess kind of 2 things, but she does it well. She ETBs, she destroys target artifact or enchantment. You're gonna want this card in your commander decks, because I feel like sometimes what happens in commander games is people run their removal, like spot removal board wipes are good in terms of creatures, but then they lack in things like artifacts and enchantments, and you need that in commander. Reclamation Sage definitely helps get you there. She's also a 2/1, she's 3 mana, just that perfect amount of mana for able to cast things pretty easily in commander. I love that it's artifact or enchantment, which is great because sometimes you will be in a situation where the enchantment is the most threatening thing on the field and you definitely want to destroy it. This card is absolutely great. Definitely recommend it. And she's a 2/1, so kind of similar to what I was talking about earlier with the Skull Climb thing with Eternal Witness. You can also do that with her. So she's great, you know, love this card. Okay, the next card that I would love to talk to you about is Tireless Tracker. Gosh, do I love Tireless Tracker with a passion. So 3 mana, I feel like I keep talking about all these 3 mana stuff, but just 3 mana just is where it's at. I don't know. It's just so incredibly good. I remember the first time I laid my eyes on Tireless Tracker. It truthfully was love at first sight. You know what I mean? So land enters the battlefield, you investigate. You create a clue to sack it and draw a card. Honestly, you could have really stopped there. If there's one thing that I love doing in Magic, it's drawing cards. Drawing cards and killing things. Those are the 2 #1 things that I like to do. And this card helps draw me cards, which is amazing. One thing I love so much about Tireless Tracker is it's like the perfect like mid-range card. You play Tireless Tracker on turn 3, you play it on turn 10, you play it on turn 25, and you're still in a great, well, maybe not turn 25. My rationale behind that is because a land does have to enter the battlefield, so if you're playing in that late stage of the game, are you really doing it? So it's better in the early stages of the game, but it's still okay if you're kind of at that like midpoint. End of game, maybe not so much, because you might not have as many lands entering compared to the beginning of the game. You investigate, you sack it to draw a card. Like, perfect. This card, do you ever look at a Magic card and you're like, perfect design? Because that's how I feel about Tireless Tracker. Perfectly designed card. But wait, we're not done. When you sack a clue, you put a plus and plus counter on her. Truth be told, that ability does not matter that much to me. However, it can absolutely be relevant, because if you're sacking a lot of things, she can become incredibly big and swing for a lot of damage. Personally, that is not the way that I typically utilize her. I'm sure it has been, but I feel as though people tend to kill Tireless Tracker very quickly, which makes sense. However, this card is wonderful. Absolutely delightful. Love it. Love it. Okay, really excited to talk about these next 2 cards together. They are actually a little bit different though. So let's talk about Rampant Growth, and let's also talk about 3 Visits, or 3 Wishes. I don't know why. For some reason I keep wanting to call it 3 Wishes. It's 3 Visits. Let's first start talking about Rampant Growth. Such a great quintessential commander card at 2 mana. Search for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped. That's it. There's really not a whole lot to say. It is basic. It does say non-forest, so you can get any color that you want, which makes this card incredibly good at early stages of the game and just for any really color commander deck that you're running. And then very similarly in the same vein, I want to talk about 3 visits because, fun fact, I just recently learned, actually, when I saw this card got printed in Commander Legends, I got really excited and I was like, oh my goodness, this card's new and great. And then I realized it's actually a very old card. It just has not been printed in many, many years. This card is absolutely wonderful. So a couple of things to note. It does say search your library for a forest card, put that on the battlefield, and shuffle your library. A couple of things to note. This card is also 2 mana. It does say forest card, however, it is non-basic. And it does not enter the battlefield tapped. I don't know if I just said that or not, but it doesn't enter the battlefield tapped, which is great. And it does say forest, so you are limited slightly in that sense. However, I don't think that that is a bad thing. Because again, I think if you're running this, you could run this honestly in, like, it works fine in monocolor decks, but I think this card really shines in 2+ color decks, and it doesn't enter the battlefield tapped, which is so incredibly good to me. So you can get your shock lands and your dual color lands and all that kind of stuff that you want. I absolutely love this card. This card has been, ever since it got spoiled, it's been on my wish list. I do actually need to pick a couple of these up to put in my various commander decks because I truthfully just think this is a, in a sense, better version of Rampant Growth. However, keep in mind, this does say forest, so again, that might be a little bit, limiting depending on your commander deck. My whole thing is, why not just run both, This card is absolutely wonderful. I love it. Okay, I feel like we've been talking about a lot of affordable cards, which it's definitely not necessarily the point of this video is to talk about money in the sense, is just to talk about staple cards. But if you are looking to invest in an EDH staple, one that I would really strongly recommend is Oracle of Mul Daya. And whenever I have this card on the board, I always feel like I am in such an incredibly great position. And this is why, too, I feel like when Core Serve Kruphix came out, people were like trying to compare the two, and it's just like they're different cards, they do different things, and they're both good in their own right. The thing that makes Oracle of Mul Daya incredibly strong, well, multiple things. First off, you can play an additional land on your turn, which is great. Playing 2 lands, love that. You do play with the top card of your library revealed, and you may play it. So it's similar in that sense to Corsair Kruphix, where you reveal the top card of your library, and you're able to play that if it's a land card, which is really good. One of my favorite things to do with Oracle is to have it play that land off the top of my library, reveal it, and then play that other land. Like, you just filter so incredibly well with this card because of that additional land that you get to play a turn, or you can do them from your hand, honestly, whatever. But I do also, one thing that I really, I love to tutor in Commander, and so one of my favorite things to do is to have this and then on board and then see if there's something unexciting on the top of my library that I don't necessarily need. I'm like, oh, well, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and tutor that away. So that's one of my favorite things. Or seeing that top card of your library makes it so you don't want to tutor because you want to leave that on top. So Oracle's just incredibly good. Getting that edge, getting the chance to play multiple turns. If you get this out in early stages of the game, it just, your board can progress incredibly quickly. There's a reason that this card is fairly expensive. It did get reprinted recently in Jumpstart, I believe. Yes, it did get printed recently in Jumpstart, which is actually fairly exciting, because it's only ever been printed 2 times to my knowledge, in this and Worldwake. So yeah, this card is great. Okay, so really, like, I gotta talk about Acidic Slime, and I feel like Acidic Slime is really interesting to me because it is 5 mana, and I just think that is something to note. I think it depends on your play group, and I feel like sometimes when I talk about commander cards, I feel like some people are like, oh, I don't play with that card, or I've never seen someone play with that card before, or whatever. We don't play that in our commander group, and I think really it all comes down to what your play group is and the types of things. So in my play group, I can get away with playing this card that's 5 mana, that it's very similar to Reclamation Sage in some senses, but in other senses it's different. So kind of building on what we said earlier about Reclamation Sage, Acidic Slime is in fact 5 mana, which can be a lot. It is it is a 2/2 with Death Touch, which makes this card really great. And when it ETBs, you destroy artifact, enchantment, or land. Now, if you are in a play group where they're not, your friends are not really running things that aren't what am I trying to say? If if you don't see a lot of non-basic lands, I don't necessarily think you should pick up Acidic Slime. But if you're in a commander group where there is, you feel like you could get away with land destruction because people are running lands that you are going to want to destroy, I think Acidic Slime is a fair card to run. But again, just bit of caution, it is 5 mana, so it's just something to note. However, I really enjoy this card. I like it because I can do different sorts of things with it. I like options, and I liked the fact that I can do artifact, enchantment, or land. Typically when I play this card, I probably destroy, the reason I want to say I destroy lands the most, and I'm not someone who does a lot of land destruction, I like a little bit, again, what I was saying earlier, jack of all trades, I like to have a little bit of land destruction in my deck, usually 1 to 2 cards, not very many at all. And Acidic Slime is one that I will run, and I like it for that reason. But I like having also the option to destroy an artifact or enchantment, and then you're left with a 2/2 Death Touch body, which is fairly nice. So if you think about it like this, you could think about it has very similar to stats to Reclamation Sage. So you're paying 3 mana to have Reclamation Sage, but then you're paying 2 mana to get 1 more toughness and Death Touch and a land, and or a land destruction. And when you kind of break it down like that, it kind of feels like 5 mana is not necessarily bad. So card does a lot of things, and I really enjoy that. Okay, let's talk about Doubling Season. Now the good news is that you're definitely not going to need to run Doubling Season in every single one of your commander decks. However, the decks where Doubling Season shines, it really does shine, and to me it's one of those EDH cards that truthfully is worth the money because it makes your deck so much better. And it's kind of one of those things where sometimes you can buy a budget alternative of some card and your deck can still function. I feel like Doubling Season doesn't really have that many other things that do something similar to it. It's a 5 mana enchantment. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens, you create twice that many tokens, which is just absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. If you're playing a token strategy in Commander, I definitely would recommend picking up a Doubling Season. Or if you're playing with +1/+1 counters, you also get twice that many counters. This in Super Friends, if you're building Super Friends, you just truthfully need this card because again, it just makes your deck so much better. And I also just have to say too, I'm a believer in the 99. Not necessarily that one card is just gonna make my deck so much better, but then I'm running all these other cards that don't really do a lot. I'm not really a believer in that. I'm a believer in building a commander deck where every card is intentional and every card has a place and matters. And I think with a card like this card will make your deck so incredibly much better that if you're playing tokens, if you're playing +1/+1 counters or tokens with +1/+1 counters on it, you just truthfully need a Doubling Season. Absolute staple. Amazing, amazing card. And also too, one thing is that if someone doesn't deal with your Doubling Season, you get out of hand very quickly. Absolutely love this card. And the last card, such a fun card. Craterhoof Behemoth. Okay. So I feel like, again, I like to talk very realistically about commander cards, and I will say, a card like Eternal Witness, run that in every green deck. Doubling Season, depends on the deck, if you're running that, you should. Craterhoof is kind of, I feel like I'm in a similar position with, I don't think you need Craterhoof Behemoth in every green deck by any means. Also, too, to note, it is triple green. So if you are playing multiple colors, that might just be something to note. If you are playing 4 or 5 colors, casting a Craterhoof might be a little bit challenging depending on your mana base. So this card's just so fun. Do you ever just look at a card and you're like, this is such an enjoyable card. So it's got haste, it's a 5/5 for 8. ETBs, creatures you control gain trample, which is wonderful. And +X+X, where X is the number of creatures you control. So if you are running a go wide strategy, I think Craterhoof is definitely a really, really solid inclusion. That's just gonna make your deck so much better. You're just going to get in there with all your dudes. You're going to give them trample. This is just kind of the card you play, and you just win the game. But you win in a very fair way. So if you're someone who's listen, I'm not into combos or any sort of thing. I just want to beat someone with a beatdown strategy and you just want to play a bunch of things and just attack face, Craterhoof Behemoth is the way to go, because you just have your dudes, you give them trample, and you make them big, and you swing, and you kill someone, and it's great. So, again, I think if you're making a commander deck where, you know, you're maybe playing like a big dumb stuff sort of deck, do you need this? I mean, you can. It can definitely be good and definitely work, but I think in the decks that it makes more sense are the ones where you have multiple creatures, and, you know, you are making them bigger with that. So like I run this card in Omnath, for example, and I just feel like playing this card and having like 5 tokens and then giving them +5/+5 when they're already 5/5s, like that's it. Someone's dead and they have trample, which is so great. So, card is just so fun. I just really enjoy it. So, all right, y'all, that was it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this new series on my channel talking about 10 EDH staples. Yeah, I will definitely be doing these for the other colors, and definitely be doing another one for green, because I already have some ideas about what I'd like to talk about in that video. But if you have any favorite green cards that I did not mention in this video that are staples for you in your commander decks, I would really love to hear it in a comment below. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll catch you in my next one.